Welcome to the Voices edition of the Ryersonian podcast. This is Jonathan Ferrani.
And I'm Lauren Murphy. Today we speak with this week's Voices columnist, Anam Latif, about the culture clash of her Pakistani-Canadian marriage.
We break down some of the week's most interesting trending topics, from the end of TV's golden age to prison yoga.
Yeah, that's right, Jonathan. Prison yoga.
Keep it locked right here for that and much more. We have Anam Latif in the studio with us today. Born in Pakistan, raised in the Middle East, Latif went to Laurier University where she met the love of her life, and now they have a 2-year marriage. Welcome to the Ryersonian podcast, Anam.
Thank you, Jonathan.
So your wedding was in Pakistan, and so your husband's whole family, who's from Kitchener, came over. What was that experience like?
Well, it was a very interesting experience because they've never been to a developing country before, let alone that part of the world. So I was excited to have them there, but at the same time kind of nervous about how they would react to certain things. For example, like how, donkeys and cows in the street is very normal, and when you're driving around, you just have to know how to dodge them. And they were just completely shocked to see animals in the street. So that's just one example.
If they've ever driven in Toronto, they might be a little used to all the pedestrians.
What are some of the biggest stereotypes you think your in-laws have had to overcome, and have they been able to overcome them?
Well, one of the main stereotypes is getting Pakistan and South Asia in general confused with the Middle East and Arabs, which is a very common stereotype in this part of the world. I think some of them have overcome that, but others, like my mother-in-law, have a little bit of a hard time. For example, she calls the pants that we wear, the shalwar, Aladdin pants, which they are not, because Aladdin was not from Pakistan. But that's just one example of how she's having a bit of a tough time.
And what about your hubby? What does he think about all this?
He really enjoyed the whole experience. He loves Pakistan. And he gets a little embarrassed sometimes when his mom makes little slips like that. And he'll jump in and say, "Mom, you should know better. You've been there." Or, "Mom, this is not, Arabic food. This is Pakistani food." So he does get a little embarrassed, but I think overall he's handled it pretty well.
Well, thanks for being here, and we'll have to have your husband in to hear his side of the story, too.
Oh, yeah.
You can pick up a copy of the Ryersonian on stands around campus to read Anam's piece.
Thanks so much for being here, Anam.
Thank you.
For the next few minutes, we're going to run down the week's hottest trending topics that will get you talking for sure. So off the top, Jonathan, I hear there's some controversy in the Canadian music scene. Tell me about it.
That's right, Lauren. The esteemed Polaris Music Prize was awarded to Godspeed! Black Emperor on Monday. The band released a statement shortly after the ceremonies denouncing the awards as insane, weird, and tone-deaf. Now, tone-deaf, of course, to societal issues like melting ice caps, not the band's music, for which they were awarded $30,000. The band is using the money to start a program in Quebec that will bring musical instruments to prison inmates. The TV world is looking grim as Breaking Bad comes to an end on Sunday. Some are calling it the beginning of the end of TV's golden age. Mad Men, another acclaimed AMC program, also comes to a close next year, but not everyone believes it's the end of good television. One critic on the U.S. site The AV Club notes that every decade, with the exception of the 60s, was at one point or another called the golden age for TV. It's hard to imagine, Lauren, that we'll see another show of the Breaking Bad caliber, but what do you guys think listening? Send your thoughts to @the_Ryersonian on Twitter. A nasty underside to the happiest place on earth has been revealed. Able-bodied Disneyland guests have been hiring disabled tour guides to cut lines at the resort, if you can believe that.
Ridiculous.
The New York Post quoted a Manhattan mother who did this horrible thing as saying, "My daughter waited 1 minute to get on It's a Small World. The other kids had to wait 2.5 hours. You can't go to Disney without a tour concierge. This is how the 1% does Disney."
That's ridiculous.
Isn't it crazy?
Isn't that part of the fun? Waiting in the line,
right?
Sweating.
Exactly. The Disney administration is attempting to curb the nasty habit by changing its disability policies. It'll now require disability access cards and time-stamped tickets to enter rides. And that'll all be starting on October 9th. So hopefully they'll be able to curb the Upper East Side tendencies there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's hoping. And so now on to health and life. If you're single, as if you didn't have it bad enough, a new study found the solo life can be deadly if you have cancer. The Harvard study found that people with cancer lived longer if they were married when diagnosed. Also, people in couples are apparently more likely to have their cancer discovered during the earlier stages, probably because they discuss their concerns over weird lumps, bumps, rashes, whatever, to their partner, whereas singles stay quiet longer and therefore don't have a chance to be diagnosed during early stages. So regardless if you're single or hooked up, tell somebody about that weird stuff that's going on down there. Channel 4 in the UK is giving a whole new meaning to pillow talk with its new show, Sex Box.
I can't wait for this one.
The show will interview couples immediately after doing the deed in a soundproof, isolated box. Well, that's no fun. Which is in the studio. The network has promised there won't be any nudity featured on screen, just a lot of naked conversation. So the host, Mariella Frostup, says she hopes the show will stimulate frank discussion about real sexuality with the intention of, debunking myths propagated by porn and the media about, what sex is supposed to be like. So keep your eyes out for that show next Monday. It airs in the UK, so I'm not sure when we'll actually be having it over here in Canada, if we can handle that kind of honest stuff. And so I know that I was obsessed in the summer with the show on Netflix that taught us that orange is the new black. And now we're wondering, does that apply to yoga pants as well? Well, next month, the Canadian Criminal Justice Association conference is going to discuss just that and decide whether or not to implement yoga programs in Canadian prisons. The program, which has seen success in, a number of U.S. prisons, has low costs and has been proven to bliss out locked-up offenders. Conservatives, shockingly, aren't so keen on Canadian cons downward dogging while serving time, citing the program as too soft on criminals.
Well, you thought our Disney story was a little bit absurd. We've got another one for you. Just on Tuesday, the New York Post posted an article by Page Six columnist Stephanie Smith called "I'm 124 sandwiches away from an engagement ring." Did you read this one, Lauren?
I unfortunately did, yes.
In the article, Smith says, "Each morning he would ask, 'Honey, how long have you been awake?' 'About 15 minutes,' I'd reply. 'You've been up for 15 minutes and you haven't made me a sandwich?' As he finished that last bite," she continues, "he made an unexpected declaration of how much he loved me and that sandwich. 'Honey, you're 300 sandwiches away from an engagement ring,' he said." Sandwiches meant more to him than nice gifts, regular sex, or any other incentive I could use to get him closer to putting a ring on it, said Smith in the article. So she says, maybe I needed to show him I could cook to prove that I am wife material. If he wanted 300 sandwiches, I'd give him 300 sandwiches.
I'm dying. I'm not an advocate for domestic abuse, but if my boyfriend rolled over and said, "Honey, how long have you been awake? Where's my sandwich?" I mean, there would be pillow smothering face action. Like, no way. What is this girl thinking?
Do you make your boyfriend sandwiches?
I mean, if we want to survive and eat, I need to be the one who cooks, because he once tried to make scrambled eggs and just kind of took the egg in his hand and hulked it and had, the shell all over himself. But I don't, go and make him a sandwich just, of my own, for my own pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Her boyfriend speaks out, too, in the article, and he says, "Women read all these magazines to get advice on how to keep a man, and it's easy. Just do something nice for us, like make a sandwich." I don't know if I would necessarily require my partner to make me a sandwich all the time. For her credit, if I could play devil's advocate for a moment, one, the sandwiches do look really delicious if you've looked at the blog.
They do.
I wouldn't mind eating them myself. Two, we can't really know what his intonation was when he was saying, "You've been up for 15 minutes, where's my sandwich?" Mm-hmm. You can read into that as much as you want. And three, it really is more interesting, this blog, if she pitches it in this way. 300 sandwiches till my ring, rather than just a regular sandwich blog.
That's
right?
true. And I mean, if you look at like all the mommy blogs of the women who already have, a ring on it and are, I'm a stay-at-home mom and here are all the meals I make for my husband and A, B, C, and D. Like, is it really that far departed? But at the same time, it's not the what, the sandwiches. It's the how. It's like, I had tick, 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 300 sandwiches in a ring. Like, that doesn't sound serious to me. If he loves her, put a ring on it. I mean, come on, man. Life is too short. Too short to wait for sandwiches, I think.
Advice with Lauren Murphy here. I think what's really the most disturbing part of it is that it looks like she has to work for it, and he can just sit back and wait for the 300 sandwich until he has to actually make a move.
What is he doing? Like, what's his part in this? Like, is he just kind of sitting back, putting on the pounds with all that starch?
Yeah, it sounds like it. And if you look at one of the photos on her blog, there she is, the Stepford wife, all done up, all fancy on the couch, and he's there in his really schleppy outfit with the sandwich ready to go.
What a catch.
Exactly, right?
Guaranteed we'll see a book from her. And I mean, when she gets that ring, we'll hear about it.
Oh, I hope she gets the ring. After all this, she better get the ring, right?
I wonder if they'll serve finger sandwiches at the wedding. We want to leave you with a little quick discussion. I mean, everybody has them. Your embarrassing first Hotmail account. Jonathan's is truly mortifying.
Mine was survivor_rules321 at hotmail.com. And I can't recall the year, but it was the premiere of the third Survivor Africa, I still remember. I was really anticipating that episode, and I was also making a new Hotmail account at the same time, so I thought, what better way to show my fan dedication than to dedicate my email account to the show?
Well, at least that had a purpose.
What was yours, Lauren?
Mine was truly embarrassing. It was foxygal_6 at hotmail.com. No reason. I mean, I was like 11. I don't even think I knew what foxy meant. But
let's hope not.
Yeah, seriously, issues. But we'll leave you with a couple of clips from some other Ryerson students telling us their mortifying addresses.
See you next week, Ryerson.
My first email address was sugar_daddy115 at hotmail.com. The ladies loved it. Loved it. Even some guys liked it.
I actually still use it. It's really embarrassing. It's like bubblypink_2.
wackyguy_2000 for the year I made it at hotmail.com. I was the wacky guy. I had a website. I posted short fiction. Most of them were actually fanfics of Austin Powers, if you'd believe it or not.